for so long, customer service in the multifamily sucked. I had an old boss named Ray Barrows. He said, you don't need to grow up in multifamily to be good at this. It's a very simple business model. It's like all the others, like hotels that we talked about. It's very similar. So I don't need somebody that knows apartments. I need somebody that's like really good at building teams, and really good at customer service. Because if you think about it, our industry should be the pinnacle of customer service. We're not selling them a taco. We're not selling them a t-shirt. They live with us. Really think about that. Like if you and I go have tacos after this and a beer, it's bad. It didn't ruin our life. We'll get better tacos next time. But we forget about it within 5 minutes. But somebody living with us, if our customer service is not on point, that's a really big deal.
In this episode, we sit down with Darren Williams, president of Portico Property Management, whose journey from a tiny mountain town in Jerome, Arizona, to leading one of the most people-centric companies in multifamily is anything but ordinary. Raised by hardworking immigrant grandparents and shaped by early loss, Darren built a leadership philosophy rooted in grit, curiosity, and uncompromising customer service. Today, he's redefining what great property management feels like, not by being perfect, but by being authentic, vulnerable, and relentlessly focused on people who call their communities home. This is the real story behind how great leaders are made.
In my head, I just thought I was gonna die early. Like it wasn't a morbid. My father died very young. He was 36. Dad had died at 40. I was just like, well, clearly the men in this side of the family, we just die early. I wasn't afraid of it. I figured I'd make it to 40-ish. And so that was one motivation to live my life as full as I can, because that candle's gonna get snuffed out at some point. I was an idiot. Of course I'm not gonna die young. I better live passionately. I don't sleep a lot. I was like, all right, let's go.
What strikes you as some of the hardest or most painful moments?
I'll put it into thirds. The first third of
property managers lose hours chasing rent, while delinquency and filing costs add up to massive losses. The financial impact? Millions in unpaid rent sold to collections agencies that recover just 20 to 30%, while taking a huge cut. Now, the Kelsey you trust for leasing helps you recover more rent in-house, reducing reliance on agencies and maximizing revenue. With Collections AI, Kelsey automates rent and move-out collections, from the first missed payment to move-out, while ensuring compliance across jurisdictions. Easily train and set up Kelsey on your company's collections process, including CARES and state-regulated workflows. She doesn't just set reminders. Kelsey answers resident questions, tracks promise to pay dates, and follows up persistently to keep payments on track. Need oversight? Corporate teams can monitor collections in real time with Zuma's dashboard, while site teams use the Chrome Assistant to track payments and even respond as Kelsey when needed. Kelsey also evaluates resident risk with AI, providing instant insights to help you make smarter renewal decisions. The impact? Doubles collections velocity, reduces filings, cuts site team workload by 85%. Stop leaving rent revenue on the table. Let Zuma's Collections AI handle the heavy lifting while you focus on what matters. Get started today.
You know what's so funny is I want to start with this very strong compliment that I think you should hear. I was sitting with the folks from Gold Dollar, so Ariel and Jill, and we're talking about like the best property management companies and what makes them great. And they had said Portico.
Really?
And
I don't even know if I'd say that.
and I went to your LinkedIn bio and I read the bio and it was very well crafted. And I guess what I'm curious to start with is, why do you think they said that?
I have no idea. I don't even know those people. So now I want to meet them. It's a good question. First, thanks for having me here, and I appreciate it. I don't know. I didn't grow up in this industry. So I'm a late bloomer to the industry. Most people grow up in it. They went to college, started leasing, and then went, oh, shoot, I didn't know this is a career. And then, wait, I'm making money. And then they just kind of move up. And it's an industry you can move up pretty quickly. So I think a lot of people find that, well, why would I jump? Why would I go? I was studying for something else, but I'm right here and I see the path and it's a growing industry. Why don't I stay? But I didn't do that. So I came late. I don't know. I think if I'm being really candid, I don't think there's a lot of good management companies. I think it's hard, right? I mean, I think we have the saying, like, really simple to describe. Like if you said, what's property management? Give me a cocktail napkin and I'll draw it in 5 seconds and go, well, this is it. And it's not that much different than other industries, right, Shiv? I mean, hotels, rental cars, airplane seats. I have this unit. I need someone to be in it. And every day I don't have somebody and I'm losing revenue that I can't replace, right? So this concept is as old as the hills. So it's simple to explain. I think it's difficult to execute. And so I don't think there's a lot of good companies. It's part of the reason I started is I looked around and was unimpressed. I shop a lot of properties and I come from the hotel industry. And in hotel industry, everything is customer service. Like it's ingrained in you daily. Like daily you're getting and looking at you have the surveys and every day you wake up and you're like, all right, where are we at? And what do we got to do? And how do we make these people, how do we give this great customer service so they come back? We need the repeat customers in hotels. I get into this industry and yeah, there's surveys. Nobody's reading them. Nobody really cared. And I was just unimpressed. Yeah. So I was on this panel one time and somebody said, hey, how long did it take you to craft a business plan? And I just laughed. I was like, well, I didn't have a business plan. My business plan was suck less. Suck less. I see a lot of suckiness out there. We're going to suck a little less. That was our business plan. And so I actually don't think we're crushing it today. We got to keep getting better, but maybe they just think we're slightly better than all the ones that aren't great.
Yeah, but I think that's a hallmark of somebody that's doing great is almost never feeling like they are doing enough. Do you know Jensen Huang from NVIDIA? There's an interview he did and he says, I just look in the mirror every morning and ask myself, like, why do I suck so much?
Yeah, that's his little pep talk.
Yeah.
Well, how about you? What drives you? Zuma, yes.
Yeah.
All right, so I could do 1 to 10. So 10 is amazing, crushing it. 1 is, oh my God, I'm drinking a fifth of vodka a day. Where are you at on your journey?
For everybody listening, before we got started, Darren was like, I'm going to make sure to ask you questions. Yeah. So we're 5 minutes in and he's already a man of his word. Where do I think we are on a scale of 1 to 10? Yeah. I think the safest answer is 7. Okay. Everybody says 7.
You know, it's funny you say that. My team gives me a lot of 7s. I'm like, guys, all right, I'm gonna take that number off the table.
7. I would say 8.
Okay. 8. Because you don't want to say 7.
I think, yeah. So let's say if I can't say 7, it's 8 or 6.
You can say whatever you want. This is your
6.
podcast.
That's true.
How long have you been doing this, or how long?
So I've been doing this so we have a really interesting kind of story. Zuma has been live for about almost 4.5, 5 years, but we pivoted in 2020 because of COVID. But from a different business. So we were running a Airbnb property management company. So
I read that.
Yeah, you read about that, and maybe I told you too. So I grew up with real estate in my family. My dad was quit tech to do real estate full time. Okay. My mom was a real estate agent for a little bit. Okay. My co-founder's dad ran a structural engineering firm out of his house. All right. So he would have builders and property managers and architects literally come in and out of his house. And after graduating, we wanted to build a business, and at the time Airbnb was kind of this thing, and we wanted to invest in real estate. I had no money. I didn't grow up wealthy or anything like that.
You checked the couch cushions, didn't find $1 million. It was just not there.
Yeah, because I was like, hey, I can start buying real estate and getting cash flow and all this stuff, and very quickly realized I had no money. So the next iteration of that was, well, why don't we approach landlords, rent their apartment from them, furnish it, give them a little bit of a margin, and rent it short term and arbitrage it essentially. Yeah. And that was the first business. We grew that fairly quickly because my co-founder, I convinced him somehow to become a leasing agent at a family-run property management company full-time after working at SpaceX and his dad's structural engineering firm. And the idea behind that was, well, every vacancy that this property management company would have, we could get immediate access to, and we could build a relationship with the landlord. It was a great way to get distribution and get units on platform.
And learn a little.
Exactly. So there's a 2-part, because my vision was, let's build this cash flowing business, and let's let the cash flow, and let's invest the cash flow into our own tech company. I always wanted to build a tech company. I grew up in Silicon Valley, and my dad was an engineer. I studied engineering, all this
stuff. Golden ring.
The golden ring, exactly. It was one of exactly. And I thought it was the best way to actually just understand how to solve the right problem, because what we had seen, especially in property management, was there was a lot of these tech founders that would come into this industry with not a lot of deep context on the business problems.
Sure.
And we wanted to get really close to the business problem and then understand how to actually build something of value. So that's what led to us building Zuma, but Astro was the first business.
Okay.
COVID hit. So we went from having this like great profitable business to then having a business that was burning, $100,000 a month in lease contracts alone. Because some landlords we didn't have to pay, we got out of leases. But that led to the pivot of the business. We built this AI leasing agent to help schedule a lot of the apartment tours because we needed to lease all these properties really quickly.
Yeah.
And we built this AI leasing agent to schedule the tours, and then realized there was a big problem for other companies. They would spend all this money on advertising. They would be generating all these leads, but there was this bottleneck from generating these leads to actually scheduling qualified apartment tours, because it depended on speed of response, quality of response, 24/7 engagement, et cetera. Yeah. So that led to the company. We pivoted and have been working on that ever since.
Awesome. And now we're somewhere between a 6 and an 8.
And now we're somewhere between 6 and 8.
Cool.
So Darren.
Yeah.
What I want to know is, I think I'm a big believer that a lot of who we are has been driven from just early experiences, right? And you're not really conscious of why you are the way you are. And usually it's because of your just upbringing and your childhood and experiences like that. How would you describe your upbringing?
Yeah, good question. Small town, life, right? I was born in Jerome, Arizona. So I looked it up today because I knew you were going to ask me. It's less than 500 people, man. There's no stoplight. So it's this tiny little mountain town near Sedona. So it's adjacent to famous places, but it's just this tiny little town.
500 people.
500 people, yeah. I mean, obviously there's towns near it that are bigger. But yeah, grew up there. My grandfather was an immigrant from Italy. Came in and built, it was all blue collar stuff. He owned a ranch and then later owned all the buses for high school. And so he kind of ran the buses for the local school and just, wake up 5 a.m. He was milking cows and that was it, right? And I was in that. It gave me a very healthy respect to that kind of hard work. It also made me go, I don't want to do this forever. I respect the hell out of it. But it's tough, right? That's a tough life. And as you get older, it's just different. I watched my grandfather. He was amazing, but he's out there at 65, 70 all of a sudden, stronger than everybody else. But that's just a tough life to have. Mm-hmm. So I have this really, really deep respect for that type of work. But it also taught me, you better go to college. You better study a little harder because I want some optionality. I don't want to just take over the farm.
Were you raised by your grandparents?
Very closely. They were couple miles down the street, had a lot of family there. My dad passed when I was very young, so I was 11. And then, the good news is you got all this family. So I felt like I lost one parent, but then you have grandparents, and all of a sudden it's just, now you got 3 parents. So yeah, very close between my mom, my grandparents, and just grew up there and really respected the hell. The immigrant kind of coming in, and he didn't even know English when he got here, and just said, I got to work my ass off, right? And so that's the dream of America, right? That's why so many immigrants come here to say, hey, we can do something here. So a lot of respect there, learned hard work there, but also learned I didn't want to do it forever. So yeah, I had 18 years of it. That was plenty. I had calluses back then. Now I'm an office jock. I don't have that skill. I don't have that skill set anymore.
That skill set.
Yeah.
Do you have siblings growing up?
I have a brother. Yeah.
Okay.
Younger brother, about 2
How did you guys differ in how?
It's tough. I think the difficulty, I'm trying to learn how to drink coffee with a mic in my face. It's probably not looking that graceful, Dylan. Look, he's 10 years younger. He didn't even know our dad, right? He was 1 when he passed away. So you become a de facto father, right? You just do, whether you're ready for it or not. And so I think that was challenging. I'm sure there were times where he's like, bro, are you my brother or my dad? I'm like, I don't know. We're just trying to figure this out. And my son now jokes because he's always like, did you guys fight? And I'm like, he was 10 years younger. Most brothers fight, but it's 2 to 3 years. 10 years, I'm just going to squash you. So good kid. We differ a lot, but I think we had such different upbringings, right? Mm-hmm. It's like night and day. And so he lives in Phoenix. We're still close. But I think pretty different because we just had a very unique relationship. We had to.
Yeah. And that must have been a lot for your mom, I guess, stepping in and raising Juvie. It's almost like raising, I guess, because my best friend, her sister is 12 years younger than her. So similarly, I've heard you effectively become kind of an early
You kind of have to.
parent. But I think in your case, I guess with your dad passing, it must have been even more reinforced in that sense.
I think so, but you figure it out, right? I mean, this is the thing. One of the reasons I don't talk about this a lot, you asked, is there anything off the, I say no. I mean, I'll talk about anything. Everybody gets uncomfortable when you share that. They're like, oh my God, what do I say? What do I do? And the truth is, everybody has their own shit. They do, right? I mean, they just do. So no matter what tragedy you grew up with, everybody had something. You interview a lot of people. I don't know what number you're at. How many of these have you done now?
I think we've done 70.
70. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a question about that in a little bit.
Okay.
But you've interviewed a lot of people and you've gotten to know them. And I bet you've seen that everybody has their own stuff they had to deal with, right? Whether it was, a divorce, or I didn't have a parent, or I was broke, or I was starving, or I was bullied. I mean, everybody has their stuff. And so I learned early on, like, you just got to get through it, right? And I have empathy for other folks. But if you wallow in whatever bad thing happened, you're not going anywhere. So yeah, super sad that happened. But I also was super lucky, right? How many people lose a parent, don't have awesome grandparents down the street that can kind of take them under there? And so, yeah, it was tough. Had a great mom. She wasn't working at the time. She had to go back to school and go back to work. So that I think my takeaway from growing up with all of that was, work your ass off. Don't accept excuses. Bad things happen. But there's a lot of good in the world, and let's go figure it out. And that's the takeaway. And I think, ironically, a lot of that's made me, it's a good ingredient to what's made me successful. I don't know, without that grit and without those things, I don't know who I would have become. And that's a weird thing to think through.
Well, have you always been this positive, or is this a thing that you
That's a good question. No, right? You go through some, I think my positivity right after my father passed away was pretty high. It was fake, right? I didn't know it at the time, but I was just putting on a good face. Like, hey, we'll figure it out. What are we going to do?
You didn't know at the time that your positivity was fake?
No. Yeah, no clue. Right? You're 11. You're 12. You're like, hey, what's the big deal? Made me go to therapy once. I'm like, I don't know what good that's going to do. Like, he's dead. Sorry. Let's move on. But I was jamming it down, right? You're hiding something. And then, you're in your mid 30s and you start making some pretty poor decisions. And then you go to therapy and somebody's like, hey man, you didn't deal with any of this. I'm like, sure I did. And they're like, no, you buried it. That's different than dealing with it. And when you bury it, you lose control over when it's going to rear its head again and it's going to come out sideways or something. And that was my kind of seminal. It was like, oh shoot. Like, I was angry. I was faking it. And what was I angry about? So you have to go back and you have to figure that out. And so, yeah, I think mid 30s on, I've been pretty positive because I'm like, okay, I know how to deal with these things now. And I just realized that, yeah, everybody's got their shit to deal with. I'm in the people business, so are you. And every conversation I have, somebody's got something they're dealing with.
Totally. And I totally agree with that. And I think at the same time, I think it's also important to because a lot of the times if you over-index on that, then you don't end up processing.
Yeah, you got to work through it.
You got to work through it. Yeah. Because ultimately, it's gonna show up in your life in many. I think about that. I work with a coach who's career coaches are kind of like therapists and stuff.
Very similar, right?
Yeah, very similar. And there's certain shadows or things that I have that she told me. She's basically like, you do realize that any company or anything you do, it's gonna show up, right? Unless you kind of do the work and work through these things. So
saying that something that you haven't processed is gonna show
up in some part of your life, because I'm used to being like, oh, my co-founder, I don't want to work with him. There's this issue here, or name it, some excuse or something. You're blaming the external and putting it on the external.
Yeah.
And I think what she said was, you do realize this is an internal thing, and you haven't. There's some sort of thing that you need to process.
That's right.
Because you're going to take it to another company. You're going to take it to the next stage of the company. Yeah, exactly, it follows you. So I think it's because I think I'm similar to you in the sense where for those listening, before we started, Darren gave me this really awesome pen, and on the pen is engraved GSD, and I asked him what does GSD mean, and he said get shit done. And immediately I was like, okay, this is my kind of guy, and we're going to relate. And I feel though that similarly, I'm trying to balance this idea of like, David Goggins. Have you heard of David Goggins?
Yeah.
He's this Navy SEAL SEAL guy. And his whole ethos is I'm going to just push through pain and all this whole
stuff.
The whole vibe. And that's inherently who I've been, which is I'm just going to like muscle through things and go through walls. But I think at the same time, I'm trying to figure out how to balance both processing, stopping, and then going.
Well, and then they'll fold something else in, right? Like, so I had a leadership coach early on, probably before they were even called that. But my old boss had brought him in. He was great. We still work with him today. Dusty Staub, great dude. And early on, like we do these 360 evaluations, right? When I was a young leader, I was like my early 30s. Like you're in your early 30s, so you're ahead of me. And I was like going, okay, well, what do I got to do? And I'd get my feedback and it would be mostly good. But if you're tough on yourself, you're perseverating on that like one thing and you're like, oh my God, I'm terrible. You're ignoring the 90% of awesome things, right? You're always, and that's how you get better. And I remember he came back to me and said, Darren, your team wants you to be more vulnerable. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I know what vulnerable means, but I'm like, in practice, what does that mean? Like, am I supposed to cry? Like, what is it? He goes, no, what they think is that you're so relentlessly positive and you're so like, we can figure this out. And they love that. They love that calming influence. But it also makes them feel shitty about themselves because they think you're perfect. And I was like, wow, what? He goes, yeah, because you're not sharing man, that was a tough decision. I may have screwed that up, or I'm not sure I knew what to do there. And he's like, you're not trying to do that. But what they're feeling bad about themselves because they want to know like, hey, this is authentic, messy leadership. It always is. And so you're going to have to share more of the tough days. And I was like, I kind of learned like you're not supposed to really let your team know that you're struggling. He goes, yeah, like I'm not saying you dump it on them, but your team wants to know. They want to know who you are really, right? It's not always this relentlessly positive, to use your words. And they want to see a little more. They want you to open the door a bit. And that was weird advice for me. I was like, okay, so when I'm having a sucky day, they just want to know. And he's like, kind of, sometimes. And so I tried. I'm sure it was messy at first. I'm like, okay, guys, how are we going to try this vulnerability thing? And I'm sure I was terrible at it. But then what I did find he was right is that when you're just super honest and authentic and being like, hey, that was not my best day. Man, I screwed that up, or I didn't see that, or I'm not certain, or I don't know what to do. What do y'all think? And then it just unlocks everything because then there's trust better. And so that's a challenge in your career, all of our careers, is saying, all right, when am I supposed to have the answers and when am I supposed to be like, I'm not sure, guys. And so that's part of the journey.
Yeah, no, totally. And I see it in the company too. And I found in my life that when somebody is being vulnerable or opening up or sharing something about themselves, it makes me a lot more comfortable to share about myself, and in some ways that you become more connected, and it comes down to trust. Exactly.
That's what he was trying to say, I think, and I wasn't. He said it more artfully than I did. How many associates or how many team members now at Zuma?
About 30.
30. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. What one of my questions for you that I've been thinking about a lot. If you've done 70 of these, which is pretty phenomenal, and that's in a couple of years, right?
In a year, yeah.
What have you learned? I assume you've gotten better at it through repetition and practice. You get better. So how are you a different interviewer today than you were when you started? What have you learned?
Great question. There's a couple things. I think you can immediately, in the beginning of the interview, what's really fascinating for me to see, and usually what happens is you can see in real time how somebody is like opening up.
Okay.
Because in the beginning,
sure,
their nerves are there and whatever, and
structured,
and stiff and structured and all that stuff. And I think the other thing is, so I think I just enjoy that, right? I enjoy having real conversations, seeing people open up, and what I try to get to, and my goal is, many people I interview have not necessarily been interviewed many times, right? It's not like I'm interviewing, celebrities that are used to always being in front of the camera.
Got a PR team.
A PR team and all that stuff.
I mean, my team's out there. You saw them.
Yeah.
Pancake makeup or cutting off spare threads.
Yeah. But what I try to get to, and what's really fascinating for me, is asking questions and seeing that the person is answering it in real time.
Sure.
Meaning you can tell when somebody is rehearsing.
Yeah.
Versus,
having to really think through it right then.
I've never really thought about that. And then you can see them processing in real time. And I think for me, the hallmark of a great interview or a great conversation is maximizing those sorts of moments where somebody is actually creating net new the answer because of the question and the conversation and tailor making it for this specific moment versus pulling out something from some previous interview or some previous talk track.
Yeah.
And I think people can recognize that. I've noticed that, many of those moments, the more moments there are of that, the more people actually connect with what's being said.
Did you have an interviewer that you respected or were trying to style your approach after, or did you just go, hell, let's roll with this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So there's this essay. Do you know who Paul Graham is? So Y Combinator is this like famous startup accelerator. Yeah. And he's the founder of Y Combinator, and he writes a bunch of essays. And one of the essays is how to do great work. Okay. And it's a really fantastic essay on just the premise of it is for you to do great work. And this is what we hear with Steve Jobs and all these famous people talk about, being passionate, right? And the reason I think passion is really important as like an input ingredient to doing great work is because if you're genuinely interested in something, you come up with a much more, like people can see that passion, right? Sometimes I feel in interviews, I actually may not even, the content may be okay, but I can see the passion in the interviewer, and that is engaging. It's like when you listen to people and they teach you something that you're actually not interested in, but you see their passion, that resonates with you. So I don't really model it after one particular person, but what I try to do is preserve interestingness. So what I mean by that is I want to make sure, and that's why I ask questions that I'm actually interested in. And I don't really have, you see, I've Darren, Jerome, Arizona, and I don't have a bunch of like scripts or
see where it takes you.
See where it takes you.
Meander a little
because I think it's important to preserve genuine curiosity and interestingness. But I mean, there are great interviewers. Stephen Bartlett has this show called Diary of a CEO that I think is great. But what you all also realize, I grew up watching a lot of podcasts, so I'm upset. I'm a much more, I think John and I talked about this. He listens to a bunch of podcasts too. So I showed him this podcast called Founders by David Senra. It's this guy who reads a biography every week and records kind of a monologue of his thoughts on that person and their life story. Yeah. But the reason why it's really interesting is he's able to, because he has such a big information Rolodex of all these founders, he can correlate like what did Steve Jobs do in his 20s versus Bill Gates and tie those threads together.
Starts to see the fundamental things that really are instrumental in almost every successful business.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just grew up listening to a lot of podcasts, and I think it's my favorite medium to.
Well, we've reached our first embarrassing inflection point then, Shiv, because I don't listen to any podcasts. Like none. And I have friends and folks that are always like, you got to listen to this podcast. You got to, and I just don't. And I clearly am in the minority. Like at this point, I might be the only holdout, right? It's like, and I think the reason is because everybody's like, why don't you? You're so curious. Well, one, I'm a reader. I didn't grow up with podcasts. So it's just, I read. I have a bunch of books and I read. And secondly, I read faster than I listen anyway. So I'm like, well, that's just slowing me down. They're like, well, put it on 1.5. I'm like, that's weird. Sounds like a chipmunk. So I don't listen to any. So I will make a commitment today. I'm going to ask your favorite one afterwards, and you're going to give it to me, and I will listen. I'll come back to you.
Amazing. Okay, yeah, I'll send you. I have so many. I mean, that's the thing, though. Is the truth is, I think it just depends on who you are, right? The reality is, if you enjoy reading and it's a medium that you can absorb and process information, then so be it. If a medium for me is listening and conversations and all that, and that's my best way of absorbing information. I think it really just depends on the medium that is resonant with you.
No, you're right. I mean, my best friend in Arizona, who I grew up with, who lives 7 miles down the street too, which is awesome. Is godfather of my kid. How I Built This was a podcast.
I love that.
And he was addicted to it, and I just would never listen. And then 3 years ago, they came out with a book, and I bought it immediately, and I zoomed through it, and I was like, this was amazing. He's like, I've been telling you. I'm like, I needed it in book form. So the problem is folks the new medium is podcasting, right? It's that or a visual medium. So there's fewer and fewer books probably getting written. They're now in that. So I'm going to have to pivot at some point, or I'm going to be left behind. So we'll see.
That's so interesting. So where do you think this, like, you read, what do you read?
Everything. I mean, it's, look, I think I don't like to talk in like axioms or, this has to be this way. But in general, I think really successful people are curious, right? They just are. They're curious about the world, curious about their customers, they're just curious. And I'm very curious. And clearly you are. You wouldn't be doing this if you weren't. And so, but that curiosity when I was a kid was satiated by reading. That was the only way. I mean, there wasn't a podcast. There weren't smartphones. We're going to talk about that. I'm glad you brought up Airbnb because I have something I want to talk to you about Airbnb today. So that's it. So that was my curiosity was, solved by reading. And when you've done that for decades, it's pretty hard to pivot. Now, many people have. Now, when I send a New York Times article or somebody to somebody, they're like, oh, sweet, I can listen to it. So this is, again, I'm the last holdout. I'm the one that, I'm the old dude with the newspaper, right? So I think you can still get what you're looking for. But yeah, I'm going to have to pivot here pretty soon.
Yeah. Is the curiosity, because I can see that I can see you're very curious. Is that, where do you think that comes from? So for example, for me, I have, when I was 11, I'll tell the story. So
Yeah.
when I was
See, I got you moving now. Let's go. I'm ready.
I grew up in the Bay Area, and when I was 12, I moved to India, and I grew up in India from 12 to 18.
Did you have family in India?
My parents, my dad got offered the opportunity to join this early stage tech company, Bangalore, which is like the Silicon Valley of India. This was 2008, so 2007, 2008, so it was really burgeoning, and we ended up moving. And I, immediately became friends with everybody and was social. And in 8th grade, for some reason, I got into a fight with this one kid.
Okay.
And my school was what's called a boarding school and a day scholar school, which means people lived on the campus and then people commuted. So I commuted. But the boarding kids were very, very close because these were, 12-year-olds that had left their family and they become very close.
That's their family.
That's their family. So I got into a fight with this one guy.
Okay.
And the next day I come to school and immediately everybody is just not talking to me, the whole grade.
Sure.
And I'm just really confused. And over the next 3 months, there's this period where I walk in and I look at people's, there was this one kid with a cast. Okay. And I see these initials GIG written on his cast. And I was like, what is that? And then I had later discovered that my last name is Getu. And as a kid, gay, people would say gay to just make fun. That was back then.
Kids are very clever.
Yeah, exactly. So it was GIG. It was get to is gay. And I'm not gay or anything, but it became this this chant thing.
And you were 11.
For 3 months. Yeah, I was 11. So for a 3-month period, I would hang out in the bathroom. I didn't really have friends. Yeah. But the reason why I talk about this is it was in my opinion, the inflection point where, because I didn't have friends and I didn't really talk to my parents about it. I didn't really talk to anybody about it.
It's a tough one, yeah.
I wanted to figure out how to solve it because I think by nature I'm a problem solver. So I turned to the internet and I turned to YouTube, and that's when I started listening to TED Talks and listening to podcasts and reading, and it was a very big inflection point for me. And since then, I think it's been 18 years or so, the big driver for me is, I have this phrase of becoming the best version of yourself in some way. So all of my learning and curiosity is in pursuit of, just becoming better.
So that was the wellspring, you think? 11.
I think. And a lot of these things, you don't know if it's just you creating a story or if it's actually true.
Sure.
But that was my big driver. Okay. Where do you think your curiosity comes from?
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. Real quick question before I answer. Did you know the language? Was it English speaking or you knew?
So
that's a big...
Yeah. So because my school was international, I didn't have to learn that many languages, but I'm really bad with languages, so I didn't know.
Okay.
I can understand a little bit of the language, but I don't know. I learned to speak broken English. You can get by with broken English, so I would use broken English to get what I wanted. But no, everything was in English at school, and all my friends were.
That's a big. I'm bad with language too. I think I know 20 Spanish words. They're useful words, but I don't know that many after that. I assume it comes from my grandfather, right? So I think, he was such an amazing man. Moved here from Italy, didn't know the language, just bought some land and was like, let's make this happen, right? But he was super, super personable. And his thing, and I think what made him very successful, and I watched him right after my dad passed away. This was my father figure. And I would follow him around. He owned a business and I would just follow him around. Is he would light up a room when he got there. And the reason was, Shiv, is he authentically cared about people. He would ask a million questions right out of the gate. How are you doing? How's your son? Where are they at? What are they? And it's just, and people, I've found this, and this is, clearly I've modeled some of my life after this. People want to talk about themselves, right? They want to share. And when somebody's genuinely interested, different than how's your day? I'm not paying attention, I'm on my phone. That doesn't work. But a genuine light of like, gosh, tell me about that. People open up. I'm sure you're seeing that as you interview 70 and counting. And he was just so good at it that I watched, and it came from curiosity. He loved people. He wanted to know, tell me everything. And because he was new to the country, right, even when I was there, he's like, how does that work? Or how do you do this? And it was so infectious is the word I would use. And then everybody wanted to be around him, right? And then they would open up. Now, interestingly, they wouldn't ask him that many questions, and he wouldn't, but it was okay because this orbit kind of happened, and they felt they were getting to know him through that path. And it made him just so, I don't really know the right word, but just so effective at creating relationships. And so that curiosity of asking questions and just, I have it, right? I mean, I'm gonna ask you just as many questions as you're gonna ask me. And it's not a tick, it's not a thing, a little bit, maybe it's trying to get the spotlight off of me, but I genuinely want to know because I learn from other people all the time.
Yeah.
You just said, I'm going to paraphrase it poorly. You said, look, passion seems to be kind of the keystone to so many successful businesses. I think there's a reason for that, right? I mean, grinding every day through something you're not passionate about is very difficult. You have to have a reason to get up. You have to have a reason to go, I want to do this, even when it's tough. And if you don't love it, where's that motivation coming from? Like I have this debate with my friends all the time. I'm going to see what you say. Is for the arts and let's stick with art for now, or sports, or whatever it may be. Let's outside of the realm of kind of most professional industries. A lot of times what makes you successful is the passion because you want to make it, right? Like you're going to get up every day and practice guitar because you want to be famous, or you're going to go hit the baseball every day and have a pitching coach because you want to get to the, well, what happens when you get there, right? All of a sudden you have money and fame and all the things you've been chasing. You've caught it, right? Can you keep that? What does it take to keep that internal drive? John Bon Jovi, when he's broke and he's playing in a little bar, well, he has lots of things to pull from. But when he's rich and he's jet setting, where does that drive come from to get up the next day and go, well, I'm already a multi-millionaire. I already have several records. I'm already have groupies over here. Why am I getting up super early tomorrow to grind it out? And I don't know the answer. Is it passion? Is it like, what is it? And can you keep creating great art once you've made it?
I think it's intrinsic motivation, right? You listen to Kobe and Michael Jordan when they talked about. I'm not huge into sports, but I love studying the great people in every domain. And you look at Kobe and Michael Jordan, and when they got into the league, I remember I think that it was potentially Kobe. They were actually just like shocked with the level of talent and the level of like commitment to the game, right? And a lot of the times what happened, I think, with a lot of these players is they'd enter the league, they came from no money, they'd make money, and their motivation source would dry out. Sure. And I think that's why like in being intrinsically motivated is really the thing that will only keep you doing, it will enable you to do great work. Because if you're externally motivated or you hit the point where you're making enough money, like what's the point? What's the point? Yeah. What's the point? And some people, I think, I'm curious to know what you think, but what I've come to learn is there's really two huge buckets of motivation, right? You're either driven by fear or you're driven by love, right? And usually it's a combination of both, right? If you look at Steve Jobs, I would say there's a mix of fear and love. If you look at Walt Disney, I think a lot of it was love and the desire to create. I think if you look at Andy Grove, who's somebody from Intel, a lot of that was like fear. He wrote this book, Only the Paranoid Can Survive. So
now you're talking my language. Books.
Yeah, exactly. Books.
Shit, I got that one. I don't know your damn podcast. But
so how do you think your motivation has changed over the years, and where would you say it is now? What is driving you?
It's changed, no doubt. And it's a good question. You said you like when folks are kind of processing the answer in real time. I certainly am. I don't know. It has changed. There's no doubt about it. Look, I would question, I mean, you mentioned several names there, Kobe, Michael Jordan, Steve Jobs. I think most people would say, wow, mega successful, like GOAT status, possibly unhealthy, right? I mean, that motivation has a dark side. I think most people, I mean, you watch the documentary with Michael Jordan, people are like, he's an asshole. Like, he didn't even have friends. So there's this balance, right? And so do I want to be that? Not really. Like there's got to be a healthy way to do that. Like I have a son. I don't know. Do you have kids?
No.
I don't know if you're going to have kids, but if you do, that changes things. So that's usually one of the first inflection points that changes. You're like, well, wait a minute. Now I'm living for somebody else. And if I'm being really candid, I think my motivation early was so bizarre. My father died very young. He was 36. His dad had died at 40. So in my head, I don't share this a lot. In my head, I just thought I was going to die early. Like it wasn't morbid. I was just like, well, clearly the men in this side of the family, we just die early. Okay. I wasn't afraid of it. I figured I'd make it to 40-ish. And so that was one motivation to live my life as full as I can, because that candle's going to get snuffed out at some point. It's probably early. I better really go do some great things. I better have a lot of fun. I better live passionately. I don't sleep a lot. I was like, all right, let's go. So that's probably chapter one. Interestingly, I was an idiot. Of course, I'm not going to die young. Could die young. They were dying because they had poor eating habits and you can change that, right? It wasn't like cancer or something. There were things and I'm like, well, shit. So I have my son, I'm in my mid 30s and I start going, well, now I don't want to die young at all. Like I want to see this guy grow up. And that changed my motivation a little. Say, well, shit, how do I get really healthy? How can I learn? How can I add a few decades? And that was interesting, Shiv, because one, it was a little overwhelming, if I'm being honest. Like, imagine living your life thinking that I don't have to worry about decades 40 through 80, and all of a sudden going, wait, I do need to worry about those. I'm sure I was living my life a little like a sailor on shore leave, like not making the best decisions. So that was probably inflection point number one. And then inflection point number two, you start a business. I thought this one would fail. People laugh all the time. I did. I mean, you already said one of your businesses pivoted, right? You have to. A successful business usually doesn't make it if it's not flexible, because we can't control everything. Like the market, got to control what we can control. And so you pivoted when you saw kind of this pathway is closed off a little. So that was smart. So my business is a much more mature and less innovative and exciting business than yours. But that second pivot point is going, okay, we've kind of built this thing. I thought it was going to fail. I just thought, clock's running out. I want to say that I tried something. I want to say that I threw my hat in the entrepreneurial ring. I think I got 15 months to 2 years of cash. I'll be broke when it's done, but my son will still be young. I think he would have been he was 2 when I started before. I'm like, okay, I can go rebuild something. He's not going to have to go to, community college down the street. I went to community college. Awesome. But he'll have options. So yeah, I thought it would fail. And then your next motivation point is, well, shit, it's not failing. So now I think then my next one, I keep saying next one, I need to get to the point. I think it was hiring teams, right? When you're an entrepreneur on your own, if you fail and you screw everything up, well, that's embarrassing, right? There's that fear aspect, but you didn't hurt other people. Well, now I have, the first person that jumped, she was a gal, Robin, who had worked with me at a different company and said, okay, Darren, I trust you. I believe in you. I'm coming. And I went, oh shit, now I have responsibility. This poor gal believes I know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. I better figure it out. And that kicked me into a different gear. I hadn't even had a client to that point. I was so bad at finding clients. And then I'm like, oh, I can't. I mean, this poor gal thinks this is, oh God. And I had other people that are like, when are you going to hire me? And I'm like, whoa. So that was the next motivation. I don't know if I'd call that fear, maybe, but it was, I'm responsible for other folks now. These people believe what I'm saying. They believe in this. Well, now that's a different level of, I guess it is fear. I don't know. I didn't think of it as fear, but I did not want to let these folks down, right? And that kicked me into a different gear completely.
How did the idea of starting a property management company even come from? I know you came from hospitality.
Yeah. I mean, I'll try to make it less boring, but feel free to jump in. Look, yeah, I fell into this industry. I was in hospitality. I'd worked, and I think I tried to do some research on you. Did you work for maybe I'm conflating. Did you work for one of the big five or a consulting?
PwC, yeah.
So I worked for Accenture. So I was at Accenture and then got laid off post 9/11. Everybody got laid off. I mean, man, they didn't even know they were going to make it, right? They laid off like 2/3 of their folks, had a lot of overhead. So got into hospitality and then totally stumbled in this business. I had an old boss named Ray Barrows. the gal that just left, knew Ray. And he was an engineer by trade. And he believed that he's like, look, this industry, he got into multifamily and he said, you don't need to grow up in multifamily to be good at this. It's a very simple business model. It's like all the others, like hotels that we talked about. It's very similar. So I don't need somebody that knows apartments. I need somebody that's like really good at building teams, and really good at customer service. Because if you think about it, our industry should be the pinnacle of customer service. We're not selling them a taco. We're not selling them a t-shirt. They live with us. Like, just we say that so flippantly, but really think about that. Like, if you and I go have tacos after this and a beer, it's bad. It didn't ruin our life. Like, oh man, that sucked. We'll get better tacos next time. Okay. We forget about it within 5 minutes. But somebody living with us, if our customer service is not on point, like, they're falling in love, they're raising kids there. Like, that's a really big deal. And for so long, customer service in the multifamily sucked. It just did. Well, why? And I've thought a lot about why, and we can chat about that. But yeah, my old boss was like, hey, I just need somebody that can build good teams, solve problems. I want somebody with an MBA. And he kind of described this, and some gal that knew me said, well, you should talk to this guy. He has all those things. And he did, and he hired me as a regional. I'd never even been on property. And I got to tell you, that was not a popular move for him or me. I show up and they're like, who's this guy? He's like, where did you? I'm like, well, I've never been on site. And they're like, oh. And I'd beat out somebody that was trying to be the regional. So nobody liked me, right? I didn't have any acronyms on casts written down, gig, but yeah, that was not very popular. But I think my curiosity and my humility, it won people over pretty quickly. I said, yeah, I don't know. But I want to know, and I would love to pick your brain. And it came across genuinely enough that after a few weeks, all right, he's not the biggest asshole in the world, but he's got a lot to learn. Between you and me, it wasn't that much, let's be honest. Like, we had to pretend like, oh, guys, how do you do this? And then I probably had it within 30 minutes. I'm like, yeah, empty room, got to put somebody in, good customers. I think I got it. But you have to go, okay, yeah, well, tell me all the things, because there were plenty of things I didn't know. And so you just learn and you move. And so that company in 2011 sold. I moved here as VP of Operations to Camden. Now, that was another inflection point for me. Camden, to me, is the GOAT. I mean, they're amazing. They're a great company. They have all the plot, best company to work for. They have all that, and they're well known. And so we are selling to them, and I'm like, this is great, because our team is going to get to go to a really good company, right? Nobody wants to give up the team, and then they're going and they're mad and they're sad. But a few things I learned through that. The first was our team was terrified. They were. Even though I said, guys, you're going to Camden. That's awesome, right? We had sold one property to a lesser company, and everybody was miserable, and they're like, we're going to find a new job. Camden, that's the gold standard. So, but I look across, and the team's all nervous. And so I was like, guys, what are you nervous about? You're going to Camden. And they said, well, and this was one of my first really good learning lessons. I probably knew it, but didn't really know how to apply it, is that change is terrifying to most people. So even though it was a good company, and they knew that, they were sitting there going, what if they don't like me? What if they already have a manager? What if the regional and I just don't get along? What if that? And their minds were spiraling, right? And so that was, to me, that's been a really major pivot point to my career of saying, okay, remember that all management is change management. Change, it's so tough for people. And you have to think about this in your industry too, right? Is because you're now rolling out these things that are very different than what we've been doing. And guess who's usually going to be the resistance? It's the people that have been doing it the one way forever. And so we go through this process. Camden handled it perfectly. They came in, the owners, Rick, Keith, I got to spend time with them. They're every bit as amazing as the reputation. And they met with people and said, hey, we're going to tell you who we are. And we really want to know who you are, because you're important to making this work. And they won them over slowly but surely. And then they pivoted and offered me a job. And I had loved them forever. I respected the hell out of them. I remember we were in a meeting one time and they looked at all the stuff they were going through and they're like, this looks a lot like our market survey. I'm like, it should. We stole it. We totally stole it. I'll steal anything. I'll steal a good idea immediately. I'll even sometimes take credit for it. And they said, look, we'd love for you to come work for us. And I said, and everybody's like, you got to go work for them. You've said this is your company then. And I said, no. And the reason I said no, if I'm really honest, is they didn't need me. Camden's amazing. What am I going to do there? What do they need me to do? They're already, to me, number one. Am I going to come help polish the trophies and be like, guys, you're doing a great job? What? There's nothing to do there. And I told them that. And they're like, Darren, there are things. We actually need somebody like you that didn't grow up in our kind of philosophy that can bring in. And they did a good job. But I said no. And my friends were like, what are you even doing? said, they don't need me. I'd rather build the next Camden. Like, I want to try that. But I didn't have money. You mentioned like you didn't have a bunch of money to start a company. Well, I didn't either, man. I was broke. I was like, I got like I think I got $100K buyout, and I'm gonna like use it, I guess, to start a company. I was an idiot. I was pretty good at running things. I was really good at building teams. I had never done third party. I was just on the owner side. So now I thought, well, all I need is a phone and a computer, and I'll just hang my shingle and I can go run properties. I had never thought about how to get a client. Like, it never even occurred to me. So now I'm like, I got my phone and I got my shingle, and I'm like, you guys want to hire me to run properties? And I was terrible business development person, terrible. And so it took me like a year and a half to even get a client. So that's how I started the company. I really did think it was going to fail. And then you get a lucky break, and then you work hard and you get another lucky break, and then you look up and it's been 5 years and you're like, all right, it's kind of working. And you just lean in. And I'm 14 years in now. I would not change a thing. I love what I do. But it's hard, right? I mean, every business is an overnight success to everybody else. But you and I know, you didn't see how many nights I'm like work until 4 a.m. or can't pay payroll or what I got to do. And that's part of that journey. So I'm glad I did it, but I didn't grow up trying to be an entrepreneur. It just kind of fell into it.
The last thing you said is exactly my story too. I didn't really grow up. I wasn't this kid who like sold businesses and when I was 8 years old selling candy or whatever. I didn't grow up wanting to be an entrepreneur. I never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. I kind of just fell into it too. I guess in the 14-year journey, what strikes you as some of the hardest or most painful moments?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll put it into thirds. The first third of Portico's history is just, are we even going to make it? Right? Like, you just don't know. And it is tough. Not only did Robin come join me, but Heather and so many folks that had worked with me before, Julie, they all believed in me because we used to work together and like, we want to go do this. We want to go pour it. And so that first third is just the pressure of going, man, is this going to make it? Because again, people now rely. I mean, before it was always, yes, I was leading, but I had a bankroll or I had there was stuff in place already. And you can get a little cocky. You're like, oh, I used to run that. Well, you didn't really run it. Like, you ran some things. You didn't run accounting. You didn't run HR. You didn't run, you had IT. All of a sudden, you have to do all of that, right? So there was a joke at Portico, don't ask where something is, because he'll be like, oh, great, you can build that. Like, I would. I'd be like, great, thank you for volunteering. Like, please go figure out how to do that and report back. And they'd be like, Jesus, I just thought it was on a shelf somewhere. Nope, it's not. So let's call the first phase is just, are we going to make it? Second phase, like, we think we're going to make it, but then how do we grow and who do we want to be? I think that's crucial to an entrepreneur or any president CEO is, who are we? And do we know it well? And does it permeate throughout the organization? And I don't mean we have a slogan on the wall or here's our 10 values we made one time and I mean, we don't look at them. It's like, who are we? And then once you know that, we tried to establish that, but once you're successful, you have to pivot as well. Like, who are we and what are we going to do? Most difficult lesson, I think one of the more challenging ones is what gets you to here isn't always going to get you to here, right? It's you were successful, you hired these people and you did this and it got you to success, but you're trying to make the next leap now. And of course you want to reward all the people that did all that hard work and got you there. But what if they're not the people to get you to 30,000 units or now you have to shift and it feels disloyal. It feels like, wait, are we turning our back on who we are? But a good leader has to say, well, what are we still missing? What am I still missing as a leader, which is a lot? And then what are we missing? And how do we bring that into the organization without losing who we are? And every company struggles with this. Go on the Reddit boards of like Microsoft and Meta now or Facebook or all of them, and you're going to find people that are like, man, it's not how it used to be. Everything changed, man. They went corporate. It sucks now. And so how do you balance that? Because yes, I want to honor who we are very much so. But if we're aiming for greatness, we're going to have to bring in some other people. And I think we failed on that. I don't know how many years ago, 4, time flies. I brought in a really high level person that was very well respected, but didn't quite get our culture. Yeah. And that was a fissure point. Fissure? I think I'm using the right word. For a reader, I shouldn't have better vocabulary. Right? That was a real tough point because it was like, well, we do need other people. I don't think my team was super welcoming, and that's part of the problem. But also, anybody coming in does have to understand, what is the culture? What do I protect? And what do I cut out to get us there? And that's the balancing act. You're going to have that. You have 30 employees today. When you have 100, what is it going to look like? And how do you balance rewarding the people that got you here with bringing in the new talent you need? And I haven't quite figured it out yet, but we have to. If we don't, we'll die.
And where does this desire to become, so you mentioned becoming great. Is that your desire for the company? You want to, is that where you find a lot of, I guess, even purpose of trying to build the best and greatest company you can?
I don't understand the other way. Like what, we want to build something mediocre? Is that what I don't even get it. Greatness is ephemeral, right? Like we don't know. When people ask me like, what is your definition? What's your KPI for that? I don't know, right? I mean, we have plenty of KPIs we're going to track. In mine, it's a culture and a reputation. If somebody came and let's say you bought a building with all your billions that you're going to make after Zuma becomes very successful, you buy a building here in Dallas, you come in and say, hey guys, I don't want to manage it. Who's, the 3 best management companies? Who should I talk to? And I want to be in that mix. That's a simple definition, but I just reputationally, people go, you got to talk to Portico. They may not win all the business. They may not be perfect, but they're the best. And I think, yes, not only do I want to do that, I find that's inspiring to people want to go build something great. Doesn't mean it's going to nail it every time. We don't. If you ask me what we're good at, I can tell you over a beer. It'd be a quick beer. Yeah, we're great at a couple things. You tell me what we still need to get better at, brother, that's 2 bottles of wine and a dinner. Like I'll keep going. You'll be like, buddy, I got to get to sleep. I'm like, no, I got a few more things that we need to get better at. And so I don't even think we're great yet, but there are some things we do well, and the team's bought in, and we want to build that. We have pride in it. I mean, we don't have private equity. Like I own the company. I brought a partner in 6 years ago. We don't have private equity. We don't have anybody telling us what to do. This is internal. Like we want to do this to be really great, and I don't want to be mediocre. And there are a lot of companies out there that are mediocre that are doing really important stuff. They are, because this is an insulated industry, which we'll talk about. I mean, it's pretty insulated. I mean, there's headwinds. Like if I want to go build the Zuma competitor, I can do it with some money. Like I can't do it. Somebody could, but I couldn't do it. Don't worry. But if you want to go build a property across the way, like that takes forever. There's like zoning, the NIMBYism, like there's a lot of things that are going to stand in your way. So we're a little insulated. It's part of the reason I think this industry hasn't been very innovative is because they've been insulated. But yeah, we want to build something really great. Where does it come from? I have no idea, but I'd be bored shitless if it were just like, let's get to 40,000 units and sell. Like, okay. I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just so, what I've come to realize is it's just so uninspiring too. It just, you want to be proud of what you're doing, right? You want to have pride in the work you do. And it just feels so uninspiring to do so. Like I think I just can't imagine being right now where I'm at and what I want to do and working in a job that I'm just not inspired to do greatness in, because it feels very demotivating.
Well, and I won't embarrass myself by trying to guess what generation you are, but we found that the newer generations that are coming, whether it's millennials, alphas, I forget all of them, that they do want to be more inspired, right? There was and if you've read Good to Great, which almost everybody has, and they kind of take their 2 companies, and I think it was Merck and Pfizer was one of the, and they said, look, for one of them, they're just going out there trying to go, man, we got to push profit. Well, that's important. It's not inspiring. It's tough to inspire, the 500th person at the company to be like, we're trying to make more money. Cool, right? But most people, not all, most people can get to a point, well, I have enough money. So what are we doing now? What's the purpose? And that's something we're a culture company. I mean, because we don't have private equity and we don't have people trying to tell us what to do, like I make the decisions. I don't actually make them, the team makes them, right? It's like, I tell them all the time, I'm not Moses. I don't come down with the 10 commandments of what we're doing. I'm like, guys, what are we doing, right? I've handpicked y'all. We're the leadership team. What do we want to do? And culture is something that is very hard to build over time. It takes time. Very easy to destroy. I mean, you can destroy culture in minutes, right? We've seen companies do that. But building it takes time and effort and a commitment. And so, yeah, I do want to be great. We're not there yet, but the journey is the fun part.
What is the role of money? What has the role of money been in your life in terms of?
Not motivated by money, like at all.
You never were?
No. I mean, I don't want to get all deep here, but look, if you, I have a healthy respect for it. You have an immigrant grandfather who built up enough business that he took care of his family. That's important to me. It doesn't motivate me. It's not my number one. I read a book one time that said, look, you got usually 3 drivers out of like 50. And you've got to decide what those are. Like, do you love money? Totally cool if you do. Like, I love people on our team that love money. I know how to motivate them. That's super easy. But is it growth? Is it success? Is it the team you work with? Is it learning? Like, whatever your, and I would love to hear what yours are. So be thinking.
Yeah.
Mine has never been money. It's been, I want enough money to take care of the people I love. And that's important, right? And I'm trying to build that. And I don't want to denigrate anybody who, if you're out there and you love money, I'm not ripping on you. To me, that doesn't seem like enough, because once you have the money, you're like, well, what am I going to do with this, right? And so, yeah, I have a healthy respect for it. Obviously, it makes the world go around. It makes the world go around in ways I don't feel great about right now. I mean, I don't think money should have as big of influence in politics as it does. It's bonkers to me. If we were starting a country from scratch, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't say, you can give as much money you want to any candidate to buy influence. That seems healthy. Doesn't seem healthy. Here we are. They're writing blank checks now. That doesn't seem good for you and me just with our one vote. That doesn't seem like that's good. Here we are. So I think it's a pretty unhealthy thing at this point. But yeah, not super motivated. More motivated by bringing folks along with us. That's what's really exciting. We're still a people-focused business, right? It's changing. You're helping change it, right? There's bots and AI, and there's things that can really do different. It is changing right now, which I want to talk to you about. I get to sit next to somebody who's trying to architect some of that. But watching, at least up till this point, you get to watch people, because this is a really interesting industry. Take a stab. How many managers on site do you think have college degrees? What percentage?
15%.
You're about right. I'd say it's between 10 and 20. So great job. There's a prize at the end of this for you. What a fascinating industry. We have got some folks running $50, $60, $70 million buildings without college degrees who make a good money. I mean, managers here after commissions and bonuses, they're in the top 10%. Think about that. I looked it up. I Googled it for our teams. You're in the top 15% in Dallas at the money you're making here. You don't have a college degree. You moved up very fast. You're the president of your own building. You're running it. And you can move up so fast. Because if you show competence, there's so few quality people, you can move right up. What a fantastic industry, Shiv. And so to me, it's exciting watching people go, wait, I didn't even know I could do this. I'm not sure I can. Give it a shot. We'll help you. Let's jump. And then watching them get their own self-confidence, go, wait a minute, I can do this. That's pretty inspiring. And that changes lives. We have this saying at Portico, you never know how many concentric rings of people that you're going to impact. That little drop in the ocean. I helped your life because I gave you a job. But now who have I helped? And as I step back, because you're going to pay it forward and you're going to hire somebody. And then your kids are going to be able to go to college because you had a good job when you couldn't have gone to college. And it just kind of, it drifts out further and further and further. That's really inspiring stuff. So we talk to all our leaders, you have the ability to impact lives. That's really heavy stuff. We should take that responsibility very seriously. And we should be inspired by it. We should be waking up going, how do I continue to do that? And that gets you out of because there's plenty of stuff. You turn on the news, there's a lot of stuff I don't love reading. Right? It's pretty depressing. So what can I do to make a difference? I don't have $1 billion. I can't put a president in the White House. I'm not going to run for office. Thought about it before and went, God, that's terrible. So what can I do? And even though Portico is a small little part in this ecosystem, we are giving people jobs and we're inspiring them to better their own lives. And then that, again, concentrically goes out to the people they lead and the people they raise. That's pretty cool stuff.
Mm. Yeah, you asked me about motivations and how that's, What
are your 3?
So I think it's changed quite a bit, right?
Okay.
This is, so I grew up pretty, just financially insecure, right? Money was the root of a lot of issues in my house and fights and all this sorts of stuff. And I think I was initially motivated largely by, I wouldn't say money, but not having no money.
Sure.
The lack of money. I was motivated by not having.
Being poor is a big driver. We don't want that.
Because in my mind, what I associated with, and I've since evolved, was everything wrong was due to not having money.
Got it.
So safety and stability was having money, and
Sure.
that was the kind of initial driver for my business. But then as the years have gone on, I realized that like, I don't even know, even today, I don't even know what my biweekly paycheck number is, honestly.
Sure. Yeah.
And obviously I know range, but I don't check my bank account that often. I don't, and what I've learned is I actually am much more driven. I think the number one driver for me right now is learning. Yeah. I just love learning about people, about things. Yeah. I'm just hyper curious. And for me, there's growth and mastery and getting better has just been such an innate driver for me. And I think I'd say number two is probably the ability to, I think, this is where I feel ideally I want to move from being, which I was largely driven by fear, right? Fear, lack of money, insecurity, to ideally being driven by impact and love and, creating benefit in the world. So I think making people's lives better in the way that I can. I think this podcast has given me a lot of purpose, actually, just sitting down with people, hearing their stories, hearing all the things that people will say, when they've listened to stories and how it's impacted them. I think like creating some sort of impact that's meaningful, and then learning and just being curious.
It's two things. One, I'm worried about you. And then one question. I'm worried that if there's hackers watching, you just said, I don't even check my bank account. So guys, he's checking. He's checking. Please don't hack our friendship. You don't give names. You can't. You're in a dangerous position here, but I am intrigued. I think our listeners are intrigued. Of 70 interviews, they're not all gems. There's some you're proud of and there's some you're like,
Yeah.
How quickly can you tell when one's going off you're like, this isn't working? Like how fast can you tell? And what do you try to do to save it?
I mean, usually it's before the interview. Like you can
before the interview.
Yeah. You
don't even sit down. You're like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Well, because you build patterns. And also I think what's been really interesting.
I thought you were going to say like 5 minutes.
No, I can tell before the interview and maybe within a couple minutes, but what's really interesting for me and why this is actually very fun for me to do is it feels like in some ways a puzzle because you can start a conversation, but you don't know. There also a lot of the people that I'm interviewing, there's not any public like talks or podcasts that they've done or, content. In many cases, I don't know them. I've never met them. Maybe I've had a quick call.
Maybe they haven't practiced any of this.
They haven't practiced any of this, or maybe they're not used to sharing, things that are more vulnerable than questions I ask. So what's really fun for me and interesting is figuring out how to navigate, because there's been some interviews where immediately I realized, because I asked you before, but is there anything you don't want to talk about? And you said no. And 95% of people say the same thing. Sure. But in practice, when we're recording, and I don't blame them. It's, they realize in that moment, oh, I don't want to talk about that.
It's a viral world. Yeah.
I don't want to go there.
How am I going to screw this up?
I don't want to go there. Yeah. It's a viral world. I might say something wrong, all this stuff. So in real time, it's really fun for me to then be like, okay, now I need to like basically recreate this conversation because I've realized that they're not going to talk about X. So how do I focus on Y?
It's interesting. And there's infinite paths.
Infinite paths,
right?
Yeah.
So you can...
It's so fun. Yeah, for me, the reason why this is so fun and I love asking questions is the analogy or picture that comes to mind in my head is it's like I'm in space and there are infinite number of doors and I can open a door and go through that door and it opens up a whole new universe. Sure. And in that universe, there are infinite number of doors. So there's multiple paths and it's almost a game of, well, how do I create the most valuable conversation that I'm genuinely interested in? I think the thing that I always want to preserve, and I think what makes great content and great products is the person genuinely interested in it, right? Because if I'm asking things that I'm actually not genuinely interested in, it loses, I think, the heart of
some of the authenticity,
the conversation.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, part of the reason I think even I've been recommended to you to get on this is I will say something monumentally stupid and viral. They know that. It's entertainment. Like Carlson, everybody has popcorn right now. They're like, he's going to fuck it up. He's going to say something. Because they know I will. And I'm chronically not online, so I won't even know the impact. Just someday somebody will be like, you screwed up bad. Like, did you not see? And I'm like, I didn't even know. Like,
why are you chronically not online?
Man, I'm really not. LinkedIn, for sure. But no, I have zero. I don't have Facebook.
Social media.
None. I mean, I didn't grow up with it. And I also, if I'm being, a couple things. One, look, our most valuable resource, you know what I'm going to say, it's attention and focus. Time. Yeah, I mean, that's it. Like you and I can make more money. We can meet more people. We can't make more of that. And it is such a giant time suck. Like most people, 90% have a very unhealthy relationship with it. Steve Jobs was a genius. He knew that by using glass, tactile, that you would keep picking it up. You'd be addicted to it. And every single app maker, they want that attention. They need you on there constantly because we're the product. They're selling us, selling our attention. So they need to show, look how much they're on it. And so that is a very unhealthy thing. If you want to be successful, forget social media. You can't have something that's taking 4 or 5 hours of your day that's not accretive to your business. Full stop. I don't care what it is. Like if you're addicted to running, cool, it's great for you. But if you run 5 hours a day, you better be really good at everything else. So I'll say number one, just a huge time suck. And I think people don't even understand how much they are on it, right? I do this thing sometimes with our team where I'll say, pull up your phone.
Screen time.
And see how much and they are like, they don't want to admit it. So it's very unhealthy. Then and there's good things, by the way. I get that there's good things about social media too. I'm just highlighting the bad ones. I'm not yelling at clouds, maybe a little. The second one is I think it's divisive in so many ways, right? And I won't say it as intelligently as probably you could. You're more in this world. Because we're the product, because Google and Facebook, they need to sell ads based on us. They need to know who we are. And the way they can know who we are, besides watching everything we say and do, is it's not enough to scroll on a cat video and say you like it. Then what does that teach you? It doesn't teach you anything. I like cat videos, big deal. What are you going to sell me? But you put out something that's Whole Foods or NRA or something, and I'm like angrily well, now you know everything about me. You can slice me up and sell me. So that's just a weird world to me that we're trying to make people angry because we can learn about them so we can package them and sell them. Like that doesn't sound healthy. So no, I'm not on it. And if I'm being honest, I probably have 4 or 5 friends that aren't, and they're some of the happiest people I know. They really are. They don't have this comparison trap that they fall down, these curated lives of here's my Instagram life and it's perfect. I don't know for sure, but you've seen the studies. People are starting to go, anxiety's up and all these things. And is it somehow tied to these things? It may just be corollary, may not be causation, but I think there's something to that. And so I was a very strict dad with screen time with my son. He was the last person to get a phone. He was the last person to get an account. And it's helped. He still watches too much.
How old is your son?
16.
And what's been your parenting philosophy with him growing up?
Good question. Don't fuck it up. Try to. Look, I don't know that it's that different than what my philosophy is at the company, right? And that is one, know who you are and be really true to that and be honest about it. I think too many people say, when they're asked to say how they are, what motivates them, they're trying to give the answer they think is popular. Just know who you are. And that person's okay. As long as you're not hurting people like 95% of the people you are, that's going to be great. There's somebody like you somewhere out there. So know who you are. No excuses. And I think you referenced some blogosphere or blog people that are like, no excuses. I'm not always in that because I'm chronically not online. But yeah, it's just you can whine and make excuses about anything. But okay, what are we going to do about it? And I believe in free will and going, okay, let's figure this out. He's lucky enough that he's fairly smart and he has some resources. So you've got, if you're complaining about something or making an excuse, then what are you doing? Let's take ownership of it. And so he's annoyed by that at sometimes. He'll roll his eyes and be like, okay, Dad. But then you watch and he's like, so here's something I'm very proud of. I've plenty of things I'm not. Every time he's ever had an issue with a teacher or a coach, I've never once, his mom has never once. We're separated now, but great co-parenting relationship. We have never gone in and met with the teacher or met with the coach and taken care of it. Because are we going to do that when he's 40? We're going to go and ask for a raise? He's got to learn. This is the world. The world doesn't give a shit about you. It doesn't. It's not fair. There are 2 4-letter words you can't use at Portico. You want to guess what they are? I just used one of them. Fair.
Okay.
I don't want to hear, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
And then wait. You're waiting for something. I don't want, we're not waiting. Pick up the phone again and call him. There's no waiting. You can call me terrible 4-letter words. Don't say wait or fair. So kids will be like, well, it's not fair. And the teacher, and doesn't like me. Well, then go talk to her. I'll give you the skills. Go have them. Well, she's not going to listen to me. Sure she is. Why isn't she? Go say, hey, can I chat with you during your office hours? I'm a little concerned. It seemed like, oh, I can't do that. I mean, you're going to have to because we're not coming to do it. And we've never done that. And I used to be in student housing. That was my first regional job. There'd be a 22-year-old and their parents would be calling me. I'm like, why are you calling me? You're not on the lease. Well, they said you were. Okay. I mean, shouldn't they learn how to do this? I mean, so that would be my parenting philosophy. Like, I'm going to support you. I'm going to give you all the behind the scenes, but you're going to have to figure out how to navigate this. Like, you're going to have to. And if I'm scared of anything, so I'm going to ask you this question afterwards. I'm going to tell you what I'm afraid of. Mm-hmm. If you got me drunk or put a gun to my head, please don't. We're in Texas. We're in Texas. There's like a lot of guns here, guys. Like, I don't know what they're doing in Texas, but you're born here. Here's an Uzi. I mean, it's a little scary. Don't put a gun to my head. And you said you can only pick one thing. If any of your success, what do you think it is? And I would say it's because of some of the tragedy and difficulties I had that put bark on me as a kid. It made me very resilient. I mean, this is going to get real heavy, but until my son, the worst thing that would ever happen to me happened when I was 11. That's freeing. There was nothing that was going to be worse than that. Now I have a son, and that's scary because that opens up a whole new Pandora's box. That's why parents are always terrified, right? They're on Xanax. It's scary. But that resiliency made me very tough. Like, Portico fails and I'm broke. Okay. Like, I'm going to figure it out because I had a tough life. At 11, I'd had something terrible. So this is solvable, right? I mean, no problem. The company went bankrupt. All right, I'll do something else, or I'll figure it out, or there's a way. Well, think about it. If that's what made me so resilient and tough, what's going to make my son resilient and tough? He's not growing up poor like I was. And I wasn't poor. I was blue collar poor, right? Mm-hmm. Eating, but didn't have the newest sneakers that you needed for basketball. So, but still didn't have a ton of money. You said you didn't have a ton. It was a motivator for you. He's not losing a parent. He's not doing all these things. So how will he get the resiliency? Like, I'm not going to go burn him with cigarettes. Like, well, so what will happen? How do people that are a little more affluent, where does that grit come from? And I don't know. Early on, I think that's part of the role sports plays. It's a great equalizer, right? You strike out with the game online, that hurts. It's not as bad as losing a parent. It's not as bad as being poor. It's not as bad as food stamps. But to a 12-year-old, like, I just struck out and people booed me, and that's where you're going to have that resilience. And so that keeps me up at night, is how do you build resilience when it's artificial?
How have some of your friends done it, or what have you? Because it's a question that I think about. You've heard the phrase. It's funny. I ask all these parenting questions when I don't have kids or
you're
not
prepping.
in a relationship. Part of it is exactly. Yeah, I think it's useful to just learn.
Do you want kids?
I do want kids. I do want kids. I do want to get married. Okay. I do want to be the best father and dad possible. I think that's important to me. Is I'm not necessarily in the, like, Michael Jordan camp of sacrifice everything to be great. I do want to be a great parent, and I think that's why I ask a lot of these questions. And I think one thing that there's the phrase, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times.
I'd never heard of it exactly that way, but that makes a lot of sense.
So
you said it a lot more artfully. Well done.
Because of that, I think of this cycle where, I don't know, I felt like I had some struggles growing up, just personal things, all this stuff. And I think that's influenced me as it's influenced you. And hopefully through my, me forging this new path, it creates somewhat good times in my life. And I do think about the impact to the next generation. And I think many great people, for some reason, just because they're so focused on building the current thing, they forget about the byproduct and the outcome. So how do you think about that? How do you think about?
So you may be right. I'm going to tweak one of the words you used, forget. I don't know that they always forget. Sometimes they grew up poor, and so they resented that, and they want to give their kids what they didn't have. So their intent is good, but paradoxically, I don't know that you're helping them, right? Because I don't know where my motivation. If I was 18 and my dad was filthy rich and I could just go work I don't know where my motivation comes from. You splinter off. You either are going to get a little soft because you're like, okay, things are pretty good. Let's go party. Let's go to Ibiza. Look, many of my company's based in Texas. And there's billionaires everywhere. So we have clients and all sorts of equity. So I've met some of these folks. Some I almost feel sad for the kids because they're like, how will I show success? Like my dad's super successful. What path will I have? And then that motivates them in a different way. So it's a really good question. Again, so my question for you, I want you thinking of is how will you do that for your kids one day in the future? I think the first one is going to sound super simple, but it's talking about it. It's naming it and talking about it. I grew up with my parents' generation didn't talk about shit, man. Like it was like kids are seen, not heard, and don't worry, and you're going to have food, and hopefully you go to school. They're good parents, don't get me wrong, but that was just that generation, right? It's, shit, my dad was in war, like his parents were, they all went to war, they come back and they're like, but you don't talk about this stuff. And I get it, but these generations are different. I'm Gen X. What generation are you? What would you call it?
I don't even know. I think it's Gen Z or whatever.
Yeah. So we're more open, and I think that's healthy. I think it can go too far, right? When we're talking about everything all the time, it's like, okay, calm down. Like, let's just go figure shit out. But talking about it, my son and I talk about it. I'm like, listen, I was driven by these things. You don't have those things. So let's chat. What does that even mean? What does it look like? And being very clear, he got made fun of one time, which is ridiculous, by the way, because we joke about this in America. Everybody thinks if you own a company, you're filthy rich. That's just what it is, right? We actually have this. We do. I mean, right? People think you are rich as shit. And sometimes you're like, we have credit out. Like I mean, it just is. And I'm not trying, this isn't a sad sack story to feel sorry for the, entrepreneurs, but it's true. We actually had I don't want to say a class, but we had a moment. It's been a very tough couple years in multifamily. Just has, right? I mean, last 3 years have been very difficult. It's been difficult for our clients. And shit rolls downhill. So when everything's difficult, it really ends up on the site, right? The folks on site are feeling that pressure. And I want them to feel some pressure, but also it's my job to protect them so they can do their job, right? And so we had all our leaders in town, managers, maintenance supervisors, my partner and I, we did a session on empathy. I actually said this to, I think a guy who's been on your podcast, Ed Wolf. CEO today is Chief Empathy Officer to me. It really is. And it's both ways. So we had to teach one of my jobs is with the clients to say, hey, I get that your property's not doing very well. A lot of it has nothing to do with us. You had adjustable rate mortgage. It was at a 3. It's at an 8 now. Okay, well, I didn't do that. So the pressure's coming because guys on site, what are you doing? Okay, well, every extra call that you ask for, every extra report you ask for, that is taking away from their time to go solve the problem, right? It does. I get why it's happening. I get all the pressure coming, but my job is to protect that team so they can do a good job, not because they're soft, but because, hey, I got to block and tackle so they can go execute. So I'm asking for empathy from our clients. Like, also, how do we keep quality people on site if they hate all this extra work? Like, they're going to bounce to a property that doesn't have this challenge, and then we've lost somebody good. So one part of my job is to ask for empathy for our teams so you can see, yes, I know you're losing money, but they have choices. They can go across the street. And then, and this is what my partner and I did, we've tried to have our teams have empathy for the clients, saying, hey, you think they're filthy rich because they're a developer. Developers are always rich. And we've gone through the math, not proprietary. We're not opening up their books, but we're saying, okay, imagine somebody's a development manager somewhere and they make $400,000 or $500,000 a year. They make really good living, but they want to do something on their own. So they jump and they go build in 2023. The timing's pretty bad. They had this idea. They put all their money in it. They got backing. They're working on the promote. They don't get paid a lot if they don't get on the promote. And they jumped and it's the worst time. And they have kids that are in private school and they're like, I don't know if I can pay for that now. I may not make any money on this. Reputationally, if it fails, I may never get another. Like, you have to have some empathy. They're not just calling to make your job harder. They're calling because they're trying to do everything they can to make this succeed. So super long-winded, but I do believe that part of our job is to kind of have that empathy. And so back to your original question, yeah, it's talking with my son about, hey, I may have money. You don't have money. That's not your money. Like, I'm going to make sure you don't, but you've got to find your own path in the world. And I don't want it to be at Portico. I want you to find your own thing. Go find your passion. I'm going to give a good base. There's going to be a good Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You're going to be fed. You're going to have security. You're going to have people that love you. If you fall, there's a safety net here, but you got to find your own way. Yeah. And you're going to want that. You don't want to be 40 and going, oh, I'm here because of my dad. Yeah. You don't. You won't have any. So we're just talking about it. Is that enough? Brother, I don't know. So what will you do?
Yeah, so I was thinking about the answer. I think it's really, I'm really grateful for this. I grew up because I went to an international school, because a lot of the kids were super, super wealthy. Yeah. All the kids that went to this school, their parents had owned businesses. And I was exposed as a result to kind of the inverse of what happens when, sure, you know, your parents are super wealthy and you grew up with everything. Yeah. And especially in India, where if you're in the top, you know, whatever, 1%, 0.1%, you have maids, you have drivers, all of that is even more reinforced. So, you know, a lot of these kids grew up with a lot, and I've seen the byproduct of that and how that's impacted them with drive and hunger and all that stuff. And I think the big reason is, and if you contrast that to the Bay Area, there are some families in the Bay Area where their parents will be ultra wealthy, hundreds of millions or billions because of tech or whatever, yeah, but the kids are still really driven. And I think what separates both of those groups is where the source of identity comes from. So what I've seen in India is, when I grew up, a lot of these kids would identify their parents' accomplishments with them. Truly, like they would feel that their accomplishments is also
sure
there. So if you already are inbuilding, you know, you have this inbuilt sense of identity from your parents' achievements, yeah, I think that that creates a situation where you're not going to be driven, right? Because you already have, you've embodied the identity of your driven, yeah, and accomplished parents. So I think the first thing that I would want to really repeatedly, and it comes from repetition, right? I think like similarly in companies, you have to say the same thing over and over again, yeah, and reinforce and repeat.
You almost roll your eyes at your own self because you're tired of hearing it, but you exactly know that the team and the new people need
exactly. It. So yeah, it's repetition. So I think, yeah, one principle that I would probably embody is constant repetition, that anything that I've done is not like your identity. You have to forge your own path, yeah, and forge your own identity. And I think separating, you know, my future kids' identity with my identity is step one. One of the things I've also thought of, and I'm stuck here, is I think in some ways you almost have to be super thoughtful about the lifestyle that you're sure living, yep, right? And if you go and live this luxurious lifestyle, you cannot separate the lifestyle that you're living with your kids. Like if you want a really nice house, yeah, so one of the things I've thought of is, well, do I really care about this problem deep enough where maybe if I do make a lot of money, I'm not going to live a luxurious lifestyle. And the cost of that is maybe I don't enjoy all the luxuries, but my children benefit from not growing up in a super nice house, not always flying first class or business, yeah, class, not even knowing that sure they have money. So that's another thing I've thought of, is maybe I'll just take it to the extreme where I won't have multiple houses and I won't live a luxurious life. Smart. I'm talking as if I have money. I don't have any money right now, but
brother, we already talked about it. You own a business. You're filthy rich. You're like Monopoly. You have your own boardwalk. We know that.
But if I do well, I think that's something that I would really contemplate, is how much of that am I willing to give up or not live, because I don't want my kid to experience growing up in luxury. I never want to be the family where I'm like, have my, 4-year-old and 3-year-old son and daughter sitting next to me in first class in their own like big seat and playing video. I don't know. There's something that just doesn't sit right.
Brother, I know my son turned 16. I had to buy him a car, and it's a used Honda CRV. And I was like, he goes to school where there's like all sorts of things. I'm like, brother, that's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like your insurance alone is terrible. Like we earn stuff. And so, no, I think so. Also, you just have to be able to course correct, right? You're watching, like, just like in business with parenting, you have a theory and you're going to say, well, let's go try this. You already pivoted once in business. You're going to have to pivot with parenting too. There's times you're like, well, I thought that was going to do this. It didn't. Let me course correct. That's okay. I think it's okay to say, man, that didn't turn out like I thought it would, or I didn't really know what was going to happen. So you got to course correct.
Yeah. That's kind of what I've also learned from just conversation, is every kid is different. They're a control group of one, right? You can't use some philosophy. Yeah. I don't know. You have one kid?
Yep.
Yeah. So you can't use one philosophy with one kid and try to use the same philosophy with the other kid. The other thing that I struggle with is, it's funny how much I think about this, even though I don't have kids, but the other thing I struggle with is the reality is you can't control your kids. There's nothing my parents could have done to influence the experience that I had when I was 12 years old. There's nothing that, your mom could have done to influence what happened to you when you're 11. Like, life just happens, and there's going to be things that happen that you can't control.
I don't think I agree with all that. So I think I agree with a lot of it. I think the science right now says that you have an enormous amount of influence as a parent up till about 12. Because think about, everything you do, where you choose where to live, what cars to drive, you do have influence, and they're picking up on that. They're a sponge up till 12. They're learning. Have you ever thought about how you learned language? Like, you didn't, yeah, you went to school, but you kind of talked before you even got to kindergarten. And it's because the brain is catching everything. So you have a lot of influence. At 12, it almost goes to
changes
10%. And it's the peer group. And so now as a parent, your influence is trying to help get the right peer group around. And so, but your hand's off the wheel at that point. The training wheels are off. You're like, I hope we've set up the right foundation. I'm here. I see my job as president a little like parent at this point, not always, is I'm like the bumpers in a bowling alley now. Like, the goal is to knock the pins down. A lot of ways to do it. You may spin it. You may throw it hard. You may do whatever you want. I'm going to try to keep you out of the gutter. My job is to be the bumpers and say, okay, you're getting a little far afield here. Let's get you back in there. Because ultimately my son's named Trevor, I can't dictate his life. Now the exciting part is to see what he does with all the things that we've taught him. We're my team. My team all the time will be like, we're 18,000 units today. We'll be about 20 by the Q1. And then, we're slow, steady growth. That's been our focus. But to the point I made earlier, where everybody always thinks it gets crappy at a company when they get my team will say, well, what are we going to do? Like, how do we protect against that? And I go, great question. How are we going to protect against? You're part of the architects. Like, don't look at me. Like, how will we do that? We're all responsible, right? You have 30 people at your company. They all have some piece of making Zuma what you want it to be, or protecting against the things you don't want it to be. You're the architect. And I think you said you had a partner. But now, have you reached a point where you realize that you don't have full control over the Zuma story now? Or are you still size where you're like, okay, I'm still the architect. Where are you at?
I think there's still a lot of ownership, responsibility, control. I think at some point you do meaningfully delegate, right? And you meaningfully outsource. And I think we're still at the point where I think you have to be extremely hands-on, right? But at the same time, I think my goal is to hire people that I trust, or that I want to trust, and then have them prove that I can trust them in the first few months or whatever, and then meaningfully delegate a big part of the business. I think going back, I do want to respond to what you said.
Yeah.
So I like the analogy of the container and the bowling alley. I think at the same time, though, you're totally right. You can set a lot of environments and containers and where they go to school and all of that. But at the same time, you're not controlling them at school. You're not, controlling what their soccer coach may do to them in when they're private. You're not
hundreds of inputs
and all this external. So I hear you on that. I think my thing is, I know somebody who, was, not to get too dark, but when she was young, she was sexually abused by her soccer coach, right? And she was like 7 or something. And there's nothing that a parent could do to influence that to the best of your ability. So I think that's where, maybe because I have that reference point, my mind is a little bit kind of tainted by that. But I think that's where it's like, you can do your best, but a black swan event can happen.
No doubt.
And you can't control that. And that can be very imprinted.
Yes. No doubt. So sorry to hear that. That's awful. Happens more than we even want to admit or know. I still think, so in that, I hate to use that example, but you used it. So in that example, if you had 5 people that had to go through such a tragedy like that, how the parents respond is meaningfully different. You could have one set of parents that's like, this is awful. We love you. Let's go get you therapy. Let's work on this. Let's figure this out. You could have a set of parents that's like, that didn't happen, or we don't talk about that. So the parents still have this extreme impact. They can't protect against everything. And that's a terrifying thing as a parent. Again, worried that for most of my life, I didn't really care. I just thought I was going to die early. And like, well, who cares what happens? Then you have a kid, you're like, I care about everything that's going to happen. And you realize how powerless you are. You're completely powerless. You don't. So that's, I think, the point you're trying to make is, I don't control almost anything. That's actually a very annoying thing we say at Portico all the time. Control what you can control, because about 90% you can't. So let's find the 10% we really actually have an influence on. Let's get that right. And the funny part is, so here's my question for you, because I do want to shift to business. Is Zuma strictly multifamily? Is it?
We're focused on multifamily,
Okay.
yeah.
So there's some other, but multifamily has been the focus. Multifamily is a historically incredibly uninnovative space. I have a theory about why, but it is, even people that love multifamily go, oh man, we're pretty antiquated. You're bringing a solution that is tip of the spear innovative, right? We're in the mix of it, right? I mean, ChatGPT has already outpunted what they thought they could do. That's crazy. And so as you try to bring this innovative solution to a historically antiquated industry, do you believe multifamily is ready for it? And if not, how are you navigating that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's so case dependent, obviously. You have such a wide range of responses to technology. You have companies that will immediately jump at the opportunity to try anything new.
Sure.
And then on the other end, you have companies that are extremely tech averse. Sure. But I think the through line that we see is that every company, whether they're super interested in using the latest technology or they're on the other end of the spectrum, still believe that I think humans are the human element of the industry is kind of the through line. And what I've seen is people will say, yes, we want to use technology, and we still value the human element. And now one could argue, I don't know how much of that is just what they're saying publicly
Yeah. versus
what is actually true. But I think from my experience, I've been pleasantly surprised. I think when we started this business in 2020, I remember I was the first salesperson, obviously. So I knew nobody in the industry. I was not connected at all. We worked with a small management company that had 800 units. So they weren't plugged into the industry at all. And I would just cold call. I'd get a list of people and I'd call. And what I was really surprised to see back in 2020, 2021 was that 1 out of every 3 people that I was able to get on the phone with and explain what we did actually responded extremely positively.
Okay.
And this was 4 or 5 years ago. Okay. So I think the industry, actually, from my perspective, people are excited, but I think there's also a distinction between, again, what people say they want and do and the need to adopt technology and where they are actually at in practice. I mean, what is your perspective on that? Yeah.
You're right that it's a varied response, right? I mean, it's a big ecosystem and there's all sorts of different responses. I will say that we started our path to using AI and centralization about 2 years ago. I talk about it all the time. It takes up a lot of my bandwidth these days because it's, there's this amazing, there's been so many pivot points in history of business. I mean, the printing press and agriculture, industrial agriculture and flight and internet. And they bring about so many opportunities and threats, by the way. So you have to navigate these as a business leader. Is AI seems even more powerful than all of those, if we're being honest. It really does. And so, how do we navigate that? And as I talk to people, the number one thing I hear people say, and I actually heard this just last week, is multifamily is a little different. Yes, we need to use AI. Yes, we do this, but we're never going to get to where 0 people are in an office because this is their home. And people they need a human connection because it's not as simple as getting an airplane or a rental car. It's different because it's the home. And I keep hearing this. And I've thought, I'm just like you, I'm curious. I'm like, okay, is it different? Let's really explore that. It's a cool soundbite, but I don't know if it's, and so I actually was talking just last week to a COO, very respected company. I'm not going to out him here. Great company. He's great. When he talks, I listen. He's very smart. But we argued on this the other day because he said the same thing. And I've been hearing this. Well, it's just different. I don't think we'll ever, it's homes. And I said, is it? And I said two things. One, and I don't know the answer, by the way. I'm not purporting to know.
Sure.
But my argument was two things. One, I said, how old are you? And he's my age. I mean, we're in our 50s. I said, okay, when did you last rent an apartment? He's like, oh, a long time ago. I said, yeah. Like, you are no longer the key demographic to who we're renting to. You're not. Neither am I. So, one, we're in an industry where we're famously not using the product that we oversee. CEO of Coca-Cola drinks Coca-Cola. I can promise you that. CEO of Tesla drives a Tesla. CEO of major hotel chains stays in those hotel chains. We don't live in our own apartments. So there's a first thing, which is if you have a theory that you're like, I just feel, because he said that, and I'm not making fun of him. He's probably listening to this and he knows how much I respect him. This is what everybody's saying. If you're not the key demographic to the apartment and you go, but I feel, you probably need to shut the hell. That doesn't matter.
Good point.
It really doesn't matter. Like I'm going to ask you, how old were you when you had your first iPhone?
What was I, 2012, like 15?
Yeah. I was 35 and so was this guy. So we feel like we need people because we needed people all our lives. If I wanted to learn something, you asked how I learned stuff, I had to go to the library and talk to somebody and get a card and rent a book. You could just look on your phone. So folks my age who have these theories about what our core folks want, we don't know. So is it possible this generation is fine without people? Yes. I'm not saying that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to purport to know. So that's kind of theory number one. My second one, since you brought up Airbnb. Airbnb was invented when? 2008. That's when it came. You know this because you started a business that was famously, they could not get angel investor money. They went to the top 25 groups, 0 for 25, correct? 0. And why could they not get money? Do you know how hard it is to not get money in Silicon Valley? Brother, you and I can come up with an idea over lunch and I bet we go get a couple million. Like it's that easy. They could not. Why?
Because it was such a preposterous idea.
Correct. It seemed bonkers. So you have this apartment in New York and you have an extra bedroom. You're going to let a stranger come live there for $500 for the weekend. It's become something different now. Now there's investment houses you don't even live in. But at the time, if you remember, it was a convention was in New York and it was like, do you want to rent out your spare bedroom to a stranger? It was preposterous because they thought, just like this gentleman the other day said, it's different. It's their houses. Maybe the gig economy works for, you're renting something, but your house, a stranger in it, that's not going to work. Did it work? Oh, it worked. I mean, today Airbnb's net worth, I had triple checked this, is worth more than the 4 major hotel chains combined. So it fucking worked. So my question for anybody that's saying, I feel like apartments are different, my question is, okay, back in 2008, did you foresee that Airbnb would crush it and become a hundreds of billions, almost $1 trillion company it's on pace to be over the next couple of years? Did you foresee that? If you did, why aren't you rich? And if you didn't, are you not wrong on this too, possibly? Because the smartest people in the world that have invested in every major company, they whiffed on this. So I'm not saying that apartments aren't different. I'm saying, how do we know? Are we certain? Are we certain that if we really gave great customer service with an app and had all the solutions, we're certain that people would be like, well, where's my person in the office? It doesn't seem like that's true. And I'm not saying let's get rid of people. I would love but we can't be certain that the technology, I'm not the core demographic. So I keep hearing that we got to have people. I'm not sure that's true. Yeah. I want it to be true. I don't know if it's true.
I think it's a fantastic point, actually. It's a fantastic point. And it kind of cuts through all the noise, which is all of these people that are saying this, how many of them actually live in almost 0% of people actually live in an apartment.
Let's pull up the top 50 and say, go to all the CEOs. Go, do you live in an apartment? Ironically, I do half the time. We nest as a divorced couple. So Trevor stays in his house and we move in and out. So I do live in an apartment half the time and shit happens and I'm annoyed by it. And I go to my team and I go, is this? And they're like, yeah, we have that problem too. And I'm like, wait, we do? So honestly, I do think that more people in my situation should go rent an apartment because that's where you're going to see it. I think can you think of another industry where that's true, where the people running it don't use the product historically? I think there has to be others. It's hard, right?
It's very hard.
So let's assume there are some, but ours is pretty clear that it's been a long time since we've been in apartments. And the only way to fight that is to make sure we're hiring people that are living in apartments and they're feeling it and they know what the pain points are and we're listening. So again, love the guy I was arguing with because I used to, but I just don't know where our own blind spots aren't because we're not in it every day.
Yeah. I think another thought experiment is just extrapolate it being egregious with timelines and say, okay, in 100 years, are people going to be like, are you going to say, imagine 100 years from now, knowing how we know technology has progressed in the last 4 years, 3 years even, do you still believe that to be true?
Absolutely.
What about 1,000 years? No, I'm saying
love that.
you're right. for the people that are saying that, I think it's a good thought experiment.
Because once you agree with it, then well, what does it matter when? Like it's coming. And so how do we, it's a really good question. So we use an example. We use, because it's so everybody sees it, right? Everybody is self-checkout lines. Like it happened about 15 years ago. And if you remember, there was one self-checkout line and like 9 people. And then over time, it's like 9 checkout lines and 1 person, maybe. And I always ask people, did you love it when it first came out or did you hate it? And it's about 50-50. Some people are like, oh, I loved it. I just boom, boom, I'm out. And then some people are like, I'm nervous. I'm going to screw it up. The red light's going to go on. I don't. But progress doesn't go backwards. The adoption rate, I mean, it just goes forward. And so you can't put the genie back in the bottle. So I'm going to be the asshole that names drops. I can't believe I'm doing this, but it just happened. So I'm not making it up. I was fortunate enough to have lunch with Malcolm Gladwell a week ago.
Wow.
Not just me, 12 people in a room, but fascinating. He's brilliant and smart and interesting. And he asked a question that I was like, holy shit. So I'm going to ask you the question he asked me. When it's all said and done, to your egregious timeline, let's fast forward 100 years. Do you believe you will have seen more change in the world or your grandparents did? Who will have seen in their 80-year lifespan, who will have seen more change?
Me.
Think so? I don't know the answer.
I think so, yeah. Because I think the rate of change is increasing.
It is, but his point, and he didn't say, he just said, his point was they went from horse and buggy to flight to internet. He's like, they saw some shit. And I was like, oh yeah. So it is accelerating, but I don't know if it's that clear cut. I remember my grandpa looking at planes and going, where are these all going? And I'm like, I mean, lots of places, but like, so we're all dealing with change.
Good question. I wonder if you take that same question and like keep extrapolating and seeing what would happen. Like, is there a period of time in the last 500 years where you can say, okay, 300 years ago, that was the case, or is there a trend?
I don't know. My grandpa was born in 1925, so he saw the Great Depression. He was young. 2 world wars, Vietnam, flight, space shuttle, internet. That's a lot of shit. And I think he lived to 91. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So are we going to see more? Like when I list all those, that sounds like a ton, but I'm sure we're going to see a ton. And then our kids are going to see a ton. But it's useful to ground ourselves that we're in this moment, but history rhymes, right? Like there's always something. And that's what we're trying to learn. I mean, we're trying to be on the forefront of AI, but it's less about we're AI experts. It's more about how has society and businesses always responded to monumental change. And you have to be flexible. And then my real job now is to bring people along, right? Because the pushback's always from the folks on site or the teams that go, oh, this is not how we do it. And I don't want to leave them behind, right? Like I don't want to say, well, fine, we'll just hire people that get it. That doesn't sound leadery to me at all. My job is to say, okay, let's talk about this. Like I literally give presentations to our team of going, let's think back to when Amazon was invented. Like now it's ubiquitous and we love it. But when at first it was just books. That's it. That's all they did. Didn't sell a single other thing. And then they said, well, we're going to sell other things. And then people were like, well, will that work? And it did. And then they got to the real tough one, which was women's clothing. They said, okay, we're going to sell women's clothing. Everybody said, that's not going to work. You're going to try to sell. They don't get to try it on. They don't get to see the material. Never going to work. Did it work? Totally worked. Sure you have ladies in your life that order lots of stuff online? It worked. Now we forget that it was tough. We forget that it almost didn't work. There's always naysayers, right? There's always somebody going, well, that'll never work. It's our job to teach and lead and bring them along and say, well, let's not say no, let's say maybe.
Yeah.
And then if maybe, what does that mean for us?
Yeah.
And how do we use it in our culture? And honestly, that's it's 50% of my job.
Yeah.
My job today is to go, here's what's coming, guys. We didn't invent it. Like I went to ASU. I wasn't smart enough to invent any of this. All right. But it's here. What are we going to do about it? What does it mean for us as a company, and how do we pivot and move along?
I think that's so well. I really enjoyed the way you phrase this, and I think it's really important. Charlie Munger, who somebody
Warren Buffett's
business partner, who I've studied a lot and is a big kind of role model in my life, has this theory of like inversion. So he would to get to an answer. Often the best way to get to the answer is to invert. So let's say I want to build this company and make it successful. Rather than asking what would make it successful, ask yourself what will kill this company.
I like
right. So he says, invert, always invert. And I think to extrapolate to the industry, I think a good principle and heuristic is to just imagine a world where you're completely wrong. All your beliefs. So if you believe something, what if you were wrong? What if and work your mind and imagine the complete opposite of what you actually think. Yeah. Right. So if you believe that humans are important on site and we need this human element, why don't you steel man the other side and build a narrative, steal an argument for why it's not? And I think it's important to do that because it forces yourself to see different sides of things.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's pretty fascinating. Yeah. I love Munger. Rest in peace.
Yeah. Rest in peace. Darren, this has been amazing.
I appreciate it. I will say the mic here, I'm Italian. I would talk with my hands. It's been very difficult. This is like taking away one of my superpowers. I had to be it was difficult. But
no, you crush it. This has been so much fun. I'm so glad that John introduced us and I can see why. And if we do a part 2, we'll hopefully maybe we could get like one of those little mics and we can be more free.
It's good to make me work through some challenges, right? So I appreciate that.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Really appreciate it. It was good meeting you, brother.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Cheers.